Hi guys, and welcome to the very first inaugural episode. Inaugural. The very first, let's just keep it as a very first.
That was easy for you to say.
Yes, the very first episode of The Results Show, which is basically how to use NLP and Huna to enrich every area of your life.
Absolutely. And this is our, as you say, the first episode.
Yep.
And what we're going to look at is how we can use NLP, how we can use Huna to empower the kind of like the business or the career side of our life.
Yes, because that's the thing. Is like, you know, as people, we have those like lots of different directions or lots of different facets to our lives.
Yeah.
And the lovely thing about this is it's like a central thing that basically allows us to become better at work. You know, more empowering, a better leader, but also more, you know, kind of like caring and considerate, relaxed in our private lives as well.
Well, you know, the big realization for me was that all of the areas of your life, which a lot of people have as being like silos.
Yes.
You know, relationship, health and fitness, family, business, career, personal development, etc. And the big thing I realized was that all of those areas of life have one thing in common. Me.
Yes.
So really, they're not silos. And, you know, my other big realization was that if they're not all working, none of them actually work.
Yes. This kind of goes out to almost like the wheel of life thing, doesn't it? Whereby if you've got... And you do see a lot of people, you know, who are very successful in one aspect of their lives, and the rest of their life is literally on fire. There's, you know, sirens going off.
Yeah, and you know, if we're really going to go for what we might call top level in all of those areas, then it's important that we make them all work.
Yes,
which is, you know, what a lot of people call work-life balance.
Yes.
You know, a very good friend of mine actually gave me an idea around this, which I hadn't thought about it before. She said the only people who've got a problem with work-life balance are people who don't like their work.
Yes.
And we're, you know, I know that both you and I love what we do.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, we do it all the time.
That's it. When people say, "Oh, you know, you get to do and then retire," it's like, I'm not going to retire.
No,
you know, I'm probably going to be put into the ground with a camera in my hand. The footage might not be particularly interesting, but you know what I mean. It's like, so yeah.
No, I was asked the same question recently. You know, when are you going to retire? And it was like a confusing question for me. Because I'm like, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
Why would I want to stop doing something that I love?
Yeah.
And, you know, you only need to look at the insurance actuaries. You know, insurance companies are basically built on the basis that people will only be taking their pension for around about, on average, 4 years.
It is quite a frightening stat when you look into that, how long they think that we've got when we kind of finally hang up our harness, so to speak.
When you a lot of people have that their purpose for life is their career, is their business, and then they decide to retire, they haven't got a reason for living anymore.
I've got a friend of mine, and his stepdad was a short colonel in the army. And they said to him, because he was basically coming up to retirement age, and they said, you know, you've been obviously in tanks, you've been out, you know, in the Gulf War, you know, in actual battles and all the rest of it. He said, actually, this year is statistically the most dangerous. Yeah, this year can be more dangerous to you than being in a tank battle in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
Just because, especially with folks in the army, you know, because they've got a lot of structure and discipline. They say when you leave here, all of that is going to go, and a lot of people don't make it through that year.
Yeah. So, so what we're going to be looking at over the next few weeks, with the results show, is how do we go about using NLP, using Huna, and other techniques like timeline therapy and hypnosis and those kind of things as well, which we'll throw in, to enable somebody to empower all the areas of their life.
Yes.
Which I think is a really important thing to get.
So just so you folks at home know what we got planned. So basically, and again, jump in if I got the wrong end of the stick. It does happen. But we're looking to do for the next few episodes. So it's almost like, a tree, of which we have some nice ones in a beautiful winter garden.
Yep.
So we're looking at the trunk, which is basically the different ways that we can use NLP, looking at NLP specifically in different areas of our lives.
Yes.
And then after a few episodes doing that, it's then going to almost like branch out, where we're then looking at how NLP interfaces with other, I guess you call them neurotechnologies.
Yeah.
Or spiritual technology, certainly in the case of things like Huna, hypnosis, timeline therapy.
And then also, I'm lining up a number of guests.
Yes.
And I'll be interviewing them, or we'll be interviewing them, around how specifically they have used NLP and Huna to empower certain areas of their life.
Yes, so that you guys at home can then basically listen, and then hopefully this will help you have a richer and more enjoyable life in all of the aspects. I think also because one of the things that we, which you particularly specialize in, is because NLP is very good in terms of almost like the mind, but Huna is great for the heart and the energy.
Yes.
So if you guys have just come just for the NLP, then we're certainly going to be exploring that, especially over the next few episodes. But I think you've also got a real treat in store for those of you who are getting their mind right, but would also like more energy, more connection, which is something that NLP doesn't necessarily have within its remit, I guess.
No, it doesn't. And, that was quite deliberate.
Yeah.
On, Bandra and Garinda's, the co-founders or co-creators of NLP, early 1970s, Southern California, height of the New Age movement. They didn't want NLP to disappear into the New Age movement and just be absorbed by the New Age movement. So they deliberately made NLP very mind-centric and not heart-centric or energy-centric, which is why it's still around.
Yes.
And, I have people go like, I don't like NLP because it has no heart, which is a bit like going to see a horror movie and then complaining it didn't make you laugh.
I've been to quite a few horror movies where I have actually been in hysterics, but I take your point.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Well, didn't make me laugh. Well, no, it wasn't designed for that.
In fact, if you are laughing, then you might need to, just
need some therapy.
Yeah.
So that's why we're bringing the two things together.
Yeah.
Because I think they're important. And, whenever I get a group of people together and I ask them a question, how many people here would like to have more energy? Everybody puts their hand up.
Yes.
I've never had anybody go like, I'm fine. And I think, the world, is from an NLP point of view, is chunked up. In that if we looked, certainly pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, in the personal improvement space, then what people were searching for was, how do I make more money? How do I become wealthy? How do I become rich? Now people seem to have, chunked up, gone up to a level above that, and they've gone, if I have more energy, I'll be able to make more money. If I have more energy, I'll be able to become more successful. Mm-hmm. If I have more energy, then my relationships will be better. If I have more energy, then my family life will be better. And so now a lot of people are looking at, how do I get more energy?
Yes.
Which is, as you quite rightly say, is the prime concern for Huna.
And I think as well, because it's with energy, there's not really because if you talk to people about money, And there's quite a few speakers who will talk about this, the negative connotations that we've been programmed into, and so you kind of get a delta between the conscious mind going, "Oh, I want the money," but then the subconscious mind remembering all the things we've been, money is the root of it, all evil, rich people are bad, all the rest of it. So there's a lot of weird baggage that comes with the word money. With the word energy, I think there's probably less because it's, unless you remember your grandmother saying, "Will you stop jumping about all over the place?" Having energy there's not really necessarily a downside or a guilt attached to that the way that there is potentially with other wealths, shall we say?
Yeah, with money.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So this first episode, we're going to talk about how we can use NLP and potentially Huna for business and career. And we'd had a number of questions that
we have indeed.
By the way, we want to make these podcasts work for you. So if you have specific questions, then send those questions in to us, and over the coming weeks, we will answer those questions and weave them into the sessions that we're going to be doing.
That's right, yeah. So you can either comment, if you're listening to this as a podcast, then you can't see me waving at you, but obviously you can hear my voice. But feel free to pop it in the comments around the podcast platform. And of course, if you can see our smiling faces and you're watching us on video, there's probably going to be comments around that. The other thing which you can also do, and sometimes people find this quite nice because it then basically means that the question is for us and us alone. Obviously, if we answer it on air, that's slightly different. But we can obviously answer questions anonymously. So if you want to basically send us a question directly, then send it to podcast@theresultsshow.com. That email address, podcast@theresultsshow.com.
And is that the results show or the results show?
Yes.
That's normally my line.
We flipped it around. We're actually quite pleased with the name of the show because we spent a lot of time thinking what we could call this, and then I think we were on a Zoom call and we both went,
And then, as I've had in many situations, obviously, then you want to get the what would you call it? The internet real estate.
Yes.
And
all the domains and all the other, like social media handles, and
could not believe when I searched. We were on a Zoom, and I went theresultsshow.com, and it was available.
I remember that, yeah, because we were like, how is that available? How has nobody ever done this before?
So so we have all of those.
So we have an email address which is podcast@resultsshow.com. So as and when questions occur to you, whilst you're listening to us or watching us, then please do send them through, and we will try to answer as many of those as possible. So, as David says, we're going to dive into business and career. We've got 4 questions,
great,
which we've selected. So. Once we've done our main spiel, if you like, basically our top-level summary, we'll then start to look at the questions, which will then start to give it context. So if you'd like your question answered, you know what to do.
Yep. So, Pete, what's the first question?
Okay, so the first question that we have is, this is question number 2, is can NLP techniques boost my confidence in presentations and meetings?
Right, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the big thing, I think, again, COVID really changed all of this stuff around.
Yeah.
Is that, we're all movie stars now. We're all on camera most of the day, whether it be on Zoom, whatever. And, interesting, my business partner, James Mullinson, in Fix My Mind, says that around about 70 to 80% of people inquiring for therapy are inquiring about performance anxiety on camera.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's very different to this when you and I were growing up, because it's such a different world now in terms of how we communicate.
Yeah. And so, he's got people who were totally comfortable doing face-to-face presentations. But as soon as it's on camera, they start having performance anxiety. So absolutely, in our training that we have, Presenting Magically,
Yes.
one of the first things that we do is teach a technique to get rid of performance anxiety.
Are we thinking about Hakalau, or are we? Yes,
Which
I
is a
love that one.
Huna technique, Hakalau, or peripheral vision. And because, most presentation skills courses do what they say on the tin. They give you presentation skills. And doesn't matter how many skills you've got, how many clever tricks you've got.
Yeah.
If you're nervous or anxious, none of it is going to work.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that we've got to get handled right at the start, is how do you get up in front of an audience of any size, whether it be one-on-one on Zoom, 1 on 5, 1 on 50, 1 on 500, 1 on 5,000, whether that be live, whether it be filmed, whether it be virtual or physical.
Yeah.
How to be in a calm, balanced, and centered state.
And I think, because going back to what you were saying in terms of skills, and in fact, actually having all those skills actually makes it worse in some way if you're nervous. Because, when you're presenting properly, then there's actually a fair amount going on in terms of your body, your posture, the way that you're structuring arguments and all the rest of it. So it's almost like, like driving a car or something, but it's quite a technical course, and you're weaving it through. And if you're scared, then everything, because it's not just like you have to get up and say the first thing that comes into your mind. You've actually got a large number of things to do, and there's no way that you're going to be able to do that if you're not standing on a firm base of calmness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to use the same analogy, actually, which is, once people have learned how to drive, they drive on autopilot.
Yes.
Yep. When you start to think about driving, and I just had a recent experience of this, I just bought a new car.
Yes.
Which is very different from any other car that I had before. And I started to think about driving and my driving. I actually started to investigate having driving lessons.
Okay.
At the age of 61. And I passed my driving test at the age of 17. You can do the maths. I don't know what 61 minus 17 is. He probably does.
But I'm not going to tell you.
I think I need to go back and get some driving lessons, But then, what happens is you start to get into the flow, and you start to go back onto autopilot. And from a presentation point of view, and this is related to the question, thinking is the enemy of any physical performance.
It's like when you're playing pool. It's like, because there's a graph, isn't there, basically, whereby, and obviously for some of you guys, maybe teetotalers, but for anybody out there who enjoys an occasional pint, you start out, in terms of most people that I know, you start out and you're not particularly good, and then you have a couple of pints, and then you get pretty good.
I have the same thing with skiing.
Second?
I have the same thing with skiing. I ski way better in the afternoon than in the morning.
And I think a lot of it is because what's actually happening is that you've kind of like got that relaxation. Your brain is relaxed. All the little chattering monkeys going, oh, we should be doing this, and can we do that? And what your body is just sitting there going, we can do this. Yeah, it's like you don't need to micromanage us. The brain has all these different, bits of technology that can work out angles. If I chuck you something, we've got the kitchen over there. If I throw you something from the kitchen, the actual amount of maths involved in that parabola is phenomenal. But you just go, thank you.
I find, one of my major roles when I'm training people, whether it be one-to-one mentoring, whether it be one-on-many training, coaching, breakthrough sessions, therapy, etc., is to stop the person from thinking. We're taught at school, focus.
Yes.
Concentrate. Absolute worst thing you could ever do in any environment. I can't. Thinking has never done anybody any good. It's massively overrated and really should be made illegal and banned. And by the way, if you think you can hear cats in the background,
yes,
there is a reason for that. There are cats in the background.
Yeah, so you don't need to adjust your set or indeed have yourself checked out. If you hear the occasional growl, it's because we've got various moggies roaming the place.
Yeah, because we're at my home.
Yes, and also in fairness, because we're spending time with you, they're getting a bit jealous. But that's all right, because you're important. So
they like attention.
Yeah.
What's the next question, Pete?
Let me have a quick look. So that will be question number 4. Yes, here we go. What NLP, and this is definitely a question which is like coming up more and more these days. What NLP strategies can help me overcome workplace stress and burnout?
Wow.
That's a nice, simple, easy question.
Yeah.
You got 30 seconds.
Well, I think it relates to how we open the show. Workplace stress, burnout, the root cause of that really is spending your business life, your work life, doing something you don't like. Or even worse, doing something that you hate.
There's a lovely thing, because stress originally comes from the engineering. Both you and I have got engineering backgrounds. And the thing about it, stress is not pressure. Stress is pressure applied to something in a way that it wasn't designed for, I think, is the actual. Yeah.
And, it reminds me, I was running a weekend seminar, and it was just after 9/11. And, whenever anybody comes on one of my trainings, one of my seminars, I always like to chat with people before we start over coffee or whatever. And, I asked them the same question: why are you here? And this guy said, well, the reason why I'm here is because I hate my job. And, then he said 9/11, he said, I thought, what would it be like if I was looking out the window of my office and I saw an aeroplane flying straight towards me, and I knew that in the next couple of seconds I'd be dead. And what would that be like in those last couple of seconds to think that I spent all of my working life doing something that I hate?
Yeah.
So he said, I'm here to learn how to do something that I love. And I said, okay, so is there something that you love? He said, yeah, records, vinyl. Yeah, and I'm a massive vinyl fan. And I said, well, he said, I want to set up a record shop. And I said, well, tell me where it is, because I'll be your first customer. And he then asked me a series of very interesting questions. He said, well, I get paid a lot of money for doing this job that I hate. Do you think I can make as much money doing something that I love, like buying and selling records? And I said, well, my experience is that when you love doing something, you put more energy into it.
Yeah.
And you put more time into it because you love it, and you just can. So I said, my experience is that if you're doing something that you love, you'll actually make more money. Then his next question was I thought was fascinating. He said, but is that okay? Is that okay to make a lot of money doing something that you love?
That comes back to permissioning, doesn't it?
And I thought, wow, that's heavy duty, really. And I said, yes, if you believe that it's not okay to make a lot of money doing something that you love, that's a limiting belief.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? Because with a lot of the times, you'll know that you are kind of accessing. I mean, let me know if this is true or not, because obviously you're the expert here. You'll kind of know that you're accessing someone's kind of like deeper underlying stuff when the question becomes, I'm going to say more childlike, not childish. But you know what I mean? It's like if someone says, "Is it okay to do this?" It almost sounds like it's coming from a much, much younger version. So it's almost like there's some sort of baked-in thing that we have to overcome.
Yeah, and and also, so there's a limiting belief. It's not okay to make a lot of money doing something I enjoy, which quite often that does come from early in life. And also, there's an emotional component, and the emotion is guilt.
Yeah.
I very clearly remember the day when I'd made as much money in a day as my dad used to make in a year. My dad loved his work.
Yeah.
He was a lecturer of fashion and design at then Trent Polytechnic, now Trent University. He loved what he did. And I still consider my dad to have worked harder than I do. And I'd made as much in a day as my dad made in a year.
Yeah.
And rather than going like, yay, I went, is that okay?
Yeah.
And the answer that came up was, no, that's not okay. I felt bad about it. So, fortunately with NLP, timeline therapy, Huna, then you can let go of those negative emotions.
Yes.
But if I hadn't have known those techniques, that technology, that neurotechnology, I think you call it, and I didn't let go of my guilt, would I ever have made that much money in a day again? And the answer is no, because I would have sabotaged myself to avoid the bad feelings.
And I think, because the thing about it, isn't it, that with a lot of it, when you're coming up against these self-limiting beliefs, and it's not like there's a brick wall there. It's almost, it's a bit like Never-Ending Story. It's like the nothing. It's just there isn't anything there. It's like, this is the size of your universe. It cannot grow because there isn't anything beyond that.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, they find it very, very hard to, basically find, identify these self-limiting beliefs, because they are so good at camouflaging and cloaking themselves. It reminds me of the line, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Right.
So everyone's Usual Suspects, I think it was.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's like, it's under the radar, and the value of these techniques is that they almost like, destroy the Klingon cloaking device. They make these things visible so that we can target them with our photon torpedoes, to conclude that analogy.
Right. So I think, in answer to that question, is really to do what you love and make that, from a business and a career point of view, monetize doing what you love.
Yes.
Because ultimately, if you're spending all of this time doing something, let's say, potentially that you hate, you're never going to have mental wellness. You're never going to have a situation where you're living without work-based stress.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much NLP you learn, doesn't matter how much timeline therapy you learn, doesn't matter how much Huna you learn. If you're spending the bulk of your time doing something that you don't want to do, doing something that you hate, none of that's going to work.
The other thing as well, I guess, is because, and it goes back to what we were just talking about in terms of, the average longevity once you stop doing that thing. It's almost like saying, what you're saying is right. Spend 40 years doing what you hate, and then if you're lucky, you're going to be spending 4 years at the time of life when, you might not have as much energy as you want. And then it's like, that does not sound like a good deal.
No.
It does not sound like a good deal at all.
No, it doesn't. That is the norm
Yeah.
for the majority of people, which is, as you quite rightly say, this is insurance companies around the world, actuaries work on that fact.
Yes.
That people will be claiming their pension for around about 3 or 4 years.
We like setting goals on this thing, so I think one of our goals with this podcast is to actually, at some point in the future, have to force actuaries to reevaluate that figure. How about that as a mission?
Or what we can do is just work on ourselves and put the insurance companies out of business.
Yes, because we're immortal. All the insurance company goes, no, now this doesn't work anymore. It doesn't stack up.
Who the fuck's this bloke?
How are we doing for time?
Well, that worked.
We know what time it is.
We're at 31:31.
Lovely. Okay, in that case, I'm going to suggest that what we do is we end this episode of the podcast here. We have 2 more questions on business career. Would you like to hear what they are? In that case, join us for episode 2 of The Result Show.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, guys.
And also, when you come back, we will be going on to episode 2, which is, and I've actually got this in front of me, health and fitness. A nice little segue there.
Okay.
So join us for episode 2, and we will see you then.
See you there.